All told, the universe and everything that ever existed within it lasted a few days shy of 2 septillion years, from explosive birth until final heat death and collapse. The interesting parts were mostly in the middle. Of all the creatures that found a way into existing, the Elder Ilmarks were arguably the most impressive. They originated, like many species, as simple cells in the hot ocean vents of a rocky water world. It wasn't long until they learned to overcome aging and cheat death. They created powerful machines and massive star-sized computers. The universe was their playground. They built countless simulations in which they experienced years' worth of time, while only microseconds passed in real time. As vast stretches of time passed, they lived the simulated lives of every species and every individual that had ever or could ever exist in the universe. They engaged in every conversation, sang every song, ate every meal, lived every life, and died every death. They watched all possible configurations of the universe unfold. It took most of the 2 septillion years to get through all of the interesting angles. In the final days, as the last stars were dying and the inevitable heat death of the universe was approaching, a fate even they could not escape, they set upon one last course of action. Huddled around the last purple star, they decided they would hold the greatest debate ever known. Their final task would be a conclusive ranking of everything in every category of note. One last exercise for posterity, before existence winked out of itself. Cases were made, arguments presented, and finally there would be a vote. They spent nearly 12 million years on the task, and along the way voted on things like the greatest meal, the greatest song, the greatest supernova, the most beautiful creature, etc. Eventually, they came to a specific category which caused much debate. The funniest thing that has ever happened.
Objections, but as humor is subjective, we must take into consideration not only the technical details of the event, but who perceived them and how. In this regard, it is clear that
torture to listen to you. I've sat here for the last 3 million years listening to you fools jabber on with your pointless debates. After the seemingly infinite expanses of time that lay behind us, you would think that another few million would not be much to ask. But I tell you, it is torture to listen to you, and you have voted incorrectly in nearly every category. For this particular matter, I will finally weigh in, if only to speed things along. There is only one event that can reasonably win, and I invite you to now consider with me a small little planet called Earth, and the lives of some rather unremarkable members of the long-dead human species.
Oh, great. Looks like Gramps is lying in wait for us. I wonder what long-winded chapter of his garden saga we will hear about at length this evening.
He couldn't have been gardening much. He looks all clean. Are those the new shorts you got him for Christmas?
Looks like it. Can't believe they're still white. That man is so frugal. He wears his clothes until there's barely a thread left and won't let anyone buy new ones for him. I found a loophole, didn't I? Giving them as a Christmas present?
Must be a special occasion. Hey, Gramps!
Hello there, young Master Tom. A beautiful evening, isn't it?
Yep, sure is. Want to play River Raid on the Atari?
Not this evening, young man. I've got something special to show you and your mother.
Yay!
Today, while you were at school, your old Grandpa Man has been busy tending the fields. We've brought in a bountiful harvest, and this is one family that'll be eating like kings for the foreseeable future.
Oh, cool.
Allow me, good sir and madam, to present to you the greatest tomato. The greatest tomato a Somerville garden has ever known.
Wow, that's a monster. You should show your grandson your garden while I make dinner.
If old John Fliss could see this champagne tomato today, I guess he'd have to go ahead and finally concede the title of all-time greatest vegetable gardener to yours truly.
I'll bet he would. Now you two go outside and take a look at the garden so I can make dinner in peace.
Come on, young man. Let's leave your mother to prepare a delicious feast while we have a look at the greatest tomato out in the light.
Heavier than I would have thought. Geez, sounds like a pumpkin.
That's the density.
Neat.
Now, how about a tour and inspection of the garden, Tom? I'll show you what it takes to turn this barren Somerville soil into the monster tomato-producing machine it is today. A tomato like this is not some mere accent for a salad. No, something of this caliber contains a meal in itself. A man who knew what he was doing would sit down, slice the greatest tomato, and then place the slices on the plate, salt them, and then eat them with a fork and knife. The salt is key, as it brings out the flavor in a way that is not otherwise achievable. A tomato like this could single-handedly satisfy even the most ravenous appetite.
Sounds delicious.
But before you can eat one, you must know how to pick it. Well, you first have to get eye level with the plant. Then you hold it in your hand, turning it to judge the color. Once deemed worthy, you hold the specimen from the bottom and twist counterclockwise, which allows you to remove it without damaging the plant. Now, the real key to achieving record-breaking performance is the fertilizer mix, but the secret ingredient is compost. I use leaves, eggshells, and coffee grinds. In this way, things which have been thrown away still have value. Well, the lesson in all this, young man, is that with hard work, skill, and knowledge, there's nothing that a man cannot accomplish. Sure, in the grand scheme of things, our postage stamp yard and tiny garden may not be that important. But a single man, and getting on in years at that, has been able to bend the land to his will. In the process, we have provided a bounty for our family. It makes it all worth it.
Proud of you, Gramps. It really is the greatest tomato ever. Don't!
Oh my God! Should I call an ambulance? Wait, are you laughing?
He sat on the greatest tomato ever.
Now, the lesser of you may be thinking foolishly to yourselves that someone sitting on a tomato is funny in most contexts, but that it hardly rises to the level of being considered for such a high and final honor. But in this case, given the man that Gramps was, with all of his flaws, particularly pride, and given the boy that Thomas was, Gramps' primary partner in crime, putting Gramps upon a pedestal with genuine admiration and love, Thomas could not yet imagine that his Gramps could possibly make a mistake at all. Never mind one of such dramatic proportion. Given all those givens, the great sitting upon of the greatest tomato is the only real contender for the funniest thing that has ever happened.
When the final vote came down, Raxius's nomination would ultimately come in 7th place, for mostly political reasons. But his story had made an impression upon Ilzarius, who got up immediately after the vote.
I propose we consider next the matter of the greatest tomato. Now, some of you will likely propose the Urantian tomato from the ancient human colony of Glacius 4, which grew to such remarkable size and weight that it fed a whole town through the deadly winter of 2874. Or perhaps the freakish mile-wide tomatoes created in the laboratories of the rogue Pleiadian scientist for whom science and technology were only a means to create useless things. You may be thinking of the tomato from the garden of the Vashan Princess of Ghanar, whose sweetness and perfection in taste we have all experienced, and will never forget. But none of these examples offer any things that other tomatoes don't. There's just better tasting or larger. A matter of degree rather than an example of exceptional purpose. No, I propose instead we vote for Gramps, great tomato. which Mactis has kindly reminded us of. We have all lived the lives of these people, and I'm sure you all remember the rest. For years to come, that worn wooden bench with the flecked paint had a round, dull, pinkish stain, forever marking the spot where the greatest tomato had once sat and been sat upon. Many years later, long after Tom's grandfather passed away, he would still remember this moment with a clarity rare for the species, and rarer still for his age. I recall that even 30 years later, Thomas would sometimes snicker when a salad was placed in front of him. The real value in the experience was the memory. Had they eaten the tomato uneventfully, it most likely would have disappeared from his memory altogether, and we would not be discussing it now, on the eve of the end of time. This tomato served instead to crystallize the day's events and the feeling a child had for a person he loved. In this way, it is not incorrect to say that the tomato served the most noble purpose of any tomato in the history of the universe.
When the matter eventually came to a vote, it was unanimous. The greatest tomato was picked in 1982 on the planet Earth, was destroyed hours later by Gramps, and was finally honored nearly 2 septillion years later by the Elder Ilmarks in the Great Debates at the end of all space and time.